So tell me, it's July 4th, maybe going into 5th?
Correct.
And how does this whole process start for both of you?
So,
Go ahead. You start with this one because you called me back into work.
right. So in our system, Phil and I are both in special operations with the state. Phil and I are also swiftwater boat operators and water squad leaders, and then I'm a water group soup. So this hierarchy of boat and water response for the state, for Texas Task Force 1. But we have a sponsoring agency with us in Travis County EMS. In our department, we have two modes of kind of callback. Ready 60 is you've been alerted, you need to have your gear ready, you can be at home, but if I tell you I need you in here within an hour and we're going to go to work. And then Ready 5 is I've pulled you in, you're on the clock, you can't go anywhere, but you're not doing regular EMS things, you're pulling a boat and you're doing those type of things. So we were already on the Ready 60 type thing. We'd rostered a boat squad. I had operators, drivers, had an on-duty crew that we were going to utilize, and we went from that, just kind of not really knowing. We knew we had 3 of our personnel were already in Kerrville working, but we were the local response because we still had a threat. And sometime in the afternoon, I was told by my leadership to go ahead and bring the crews in, and we would go into that Ready 5 status. And then we came into our station where our special operations supervisor works every day, where our boat barn is, and then started putting everything together. And then once we got the 6 of us assembled, 2 trucks, 2 boats, 6 people, that's when we started looking for work or looking for a place to lay down for the night and kind of get set up. More to the norm of being in a place where when the alarm goes off, we go from there to the incident. Just slightly different than what we do every day. But we needed a place to be, and that's what we started working on. And then, like I said earlier, around midnight we got pulled out into the fray of all the calls that were going on, and then it just went on for almost 2 days from there.
2 days. Oh my gosh! So when did you get involved? At midnight?
No, so I actually, so most of our boat operators were either deployed or out on injury. So I had just come off a 24-hour shift, drove home, got out of the shower, was about to lay down for a nap, looked at my phone, and I had several missed calls from Craig and several text messages like, hey, call me back as soon as you can. So I called him. He said, hey, we're expecting flooding. Let's start getting your gear ready, figure out what's going on, square your home life away, because we don't know how it usually works. Sometimes you come in for a day and you get sent right back home because we don't get as much rain as we expect. Sometimes it's, hey, like this episode, historic flooding, and we're out for 21 days type of a deal. And so as I was getting stuff ready, I got the phone call, hey, come in right now. Like, we're no longer Ready 60, Ready 5, get into the boat barn where the boats are located as fast as you can. Like, we're spinning this thing up. So I grabbed half of my stuff because I knew the other half was at the station, got out the door, met him up at the boat barn by our Medic 1 where our boats are kept, and then we got the crew pieced together. So I was there from minute 1 with it because I'm one of the boat operators. And then we got a hold of our second boat operator. He came in, and then, like Craig said, we grabbed the on-duty crew, which acted as our bowman because neither of them were qualified as boat operators. So they were our bowmen for the incident to operate.
Look ahead and see what
Correct.
Yes.
Keep an eye out, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So they're operating the front half of the boat. They're also the people who are making verbal contact, that initial contact with victims. They're the ones physically grabbing them, pulling them into the boat for us. As the operator, I'm responsible not only for them, but also the victims, their safety, making sure we don't flip a boat, we don't get hit. We're able to maintain awareness of the boat and what's going on as we're driving and operating in the rivers.
So then y'all get the call to go to Sandy Creek?
Correct. We had tried to get in there several times, and again, it was call after call after call. We would get somewhere, we'd turn around and come back, and when we finally got into the Sandy Creek Round Mountain area, I've extrapolated since that we were trying to get to a specific point where they had some people missing, and we came around that corner and were met with water immediately. And keep in mind, we're 2 4-wheel drive trucks pulling a boat So now we're down a single lane road or 2-lane road, and now we're at water that we can't get around. So it's super frustrating when you realize, okay, I've gone to a point I can't go any further. Where I need to be is over there. We had other units with our system and other county responders that were trying to make access from other directions, and so we were out of the vehicles, looking at the water, gauging the depth, looking where the road went, looking at maps, and trying to decide, okay, do we need to put the boats in here and just drive the boats to where we're going? Can we even get that far? And that's the thing about operating a boat. It's always at night and it's always in a place you've never been. So we have no idea where we're at, what's going on. And then at that point, we started hearing yells for help coming from our left. And then we just immediately went to work and tore a fence down, put a boat into a place where a boat normally can't be because now there's water there, and then put the boats in and went.
That ended up being what we thought was somebody's backyard was actually somebody's front yard. The house was gone, which is what we launched the boats through. So it was over somebody's slab, through their backyard into the actual river proper. So we were probably 100, 150 yards from the actual riverbank where we were putting the boats in.
Because it's a creek, right? It's not a river. It's a small creek called, the locals call it the Big Sandy, but it's Sandy Creek, and it's not very big. Normally it's a pretty small waterway. It's not like the Colorado River, and it was about Colorado River size that night. And the water, to our orientation, the water was coming from right to left and sweeping through that neighborhood, and we didn't even know that where we had put in was a house until afterwards, when the water went down far enough to see that, oh, there was a house here before. And again, being in a place we'd never been, we just walked right in, did our thing, not realizing that we were literally in these people's house, so to speak, and then just went to work.
And so it was the people who had lived in that house who were calling for help.
I'm not really sure. Probably not, but we feel like the people that we encountered that were holding on to things were probably swept from the other side of the road, from a neighborhood there that was completely wiped out. And again, having no history, like we don't know what has happened before we got there. We have no idea what this place looks like in the daylight, and now it's 1 o'clock in the morning. So it's impossible to say, but it likely wasn't them. It was people that came from upstream and are now clinging to light poles and fences and everything else.
What did you see? Or what else
From when? From what part?
Well, at that point, so you heard the screams.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And you're immediately driving the boat toward them?
No, so the boats are still on the trailer. So at this point, we're stacked in line going down the road because the sides are starting to get washed a little bit. We're approaching the bridge to cross Sandy Creek, which is completely underwater, by the way. You couldn't see the side rails. So if you're familiar with Big Sandy, like that has filled all the way up. And at this point, also, we didn't realize until afterwards, we were putting the boats in the water at the time the flood gauge got ripped off of the system. So that's the last measurement of current.
How fast it was.
And how high it was at that point. So where all of these things are coming into play. One is it's safe enough for us to put the boats in. Two, like what's the cost benefit analysis of us trying to get to folks, boats, people, rescuers in the water, what's downstream, where we're at, all of that's coming into play. Where can we put the boats in? Because we know we're supposed to cross a bridge. We know there's side rails to the bridge, but we can't see them. Do we put the boats in and hit the side rail immediately and lose a motor? Or is the side rail 5 feet below us and we have no problem, type of a deal. So all that's running through your head. We're getting lights flashed at us from people on front yards, on front porches as the water's rushing past them. We didn't actually see the gentleman holding on to the telephone pole at the time. We just got the lights from the people that were stuck on their house. So that's who we knew we could hear yelling for help when we made the decision to put the boats in. So we cut the fence. We ended up having to carry the boats down because we couldn't back the trailers because the grass was just so muddy, saturated at that point. We didn't want to get stuck and then have our vehicles be stuck. So we carried the boats down, got them in the water, and then we made just a very quick plan amongst the boat operators on how it was going to operate. One of us be the primary boat, one of us be the safety boat in case one of the boats goes down, which ended up happening. And then halfway through crossing the river, we noticed the folks that were on their front porch, for the time being, were safe because they were out of the actual water, out of the mainstream. There was the gentleman holding onto the light pole whose wife had just been swept away prior to us getting there. So we said, well, we got to get the man on the light pole first. He's our primary responsibility because he's in the most life-threatening, imminent danger. So that's right there in the middle of the river, can't hear anybody type of a deal. Radios half are working, half aren't working. We're trying to yell at each other to coordinate it. And then we just made the call, like, we're going for the gentleman on the light pole. This is what's happening. So we ended up heading over there, altering our course. At that point, the other boat noticed us. Boat 28 noticed us moving. We were boat 92. And so we kind of did a shuffle at that point because we were the safety boat for boat 28, which was upstream of us. So to the right of Commander Smith, who was on shore. At this point, we were out of his eyesight. He could not see us, calling this audible mid-river to change what we had talked about before we got in.
They were far enough away I couldn't even hear their motors. Like they were out of my hearing range, my visual range. I didn't know what they were doing, and I think they'd moved up a little bit upstream from me as well.
Yeah. So, and that was, we had also been in contact with Starflight 1, Starflight 2, Starflight. Starflight was overhead at some point, and then it had gotten so bad with the rain, weather, there was some lightning in the area. Starflight had to land. I think they landed either a church or an HEB parking lot. Somewhere
close by.
But I think it was the HEB parking lot. They landed because they couldn't fly. The helicopter just couldn't, for safety reasons, go any further at that point, type of a deal. So you make the call. We made the call to go get him. We started to execute the rescue. We got up to him. We found he was actually on the light pole, stuck behind a cypress root ball. So we had some water, some currents happening, which made it challenging to get to him. And then we got close enough where my bowman couldn't physically make the grab at that point with where we were at. And then we got him a life jacket, at least, so he had a PFD. He was able to get on. And that's when our motor initially died at that point, the first time that night. So when the motor died, we go straight into emergency action plans that we planned for. Popped the motor, looked at it real quick, gave it noticed no physical damage, because sometimes you don't know what you're running into under the water. Like, you could go to pull it up and your prop could be completely gone, your lower end could be bent or missing, depending on what you hit. Pulled it up, everything was good on a very quick initial assessment. Dropped the motor back in, got it started. At that point, my partner was paddling to make sure we don't hit anything, because we're moving with the current at this point. Get the boat started, get it turned around. Boat 28 came in front of them and was to where we were at, and grabbed the patient the victim before he was let go of the pole. But at least he had his life jacket on, while our motor had died for it. So they got the victim. We got our boat back up and running, and we got back upstream, facing upstream the proper way to start heading up to now, because we still have victims in the water, victims on their porch, to go get more rescues off the porch. And then that's when we had another motor failure from something we presumed we hit underneath the water. The other boat, boat 28, also had a motor failure at that point as well. The difference was they were able to get their motor up right away and make it to river left, or we were on the river left. They were able to make it to river right, to the other side of the river, hold on to a ranch fence on somebody's property that was stayed anchored, and then troubleshoot what was going on with their motor to make sure they were safe to cross the river back to where everybody was at, back to where command was at, where Craig was running the operation. Let's see. And then at that point, when our motor died the second time, we actually got broadside to the current, which is the worst place you can be in a boat in the water. And we got stuck on what's called a strainer. So that's like a cypress root ball is what we were on, but it could be a fence, it could be a Lowhead Dam, it could be the Sandy Creek Bridge. We call those strainers. It's the worst place you can be in water, because you have the force of the water pressing against you, or in this case, the boat sandwiching against the root ball of the tree. The boat started to sink at that point. I scooted back. I grabbed my bowman, Tom, pulled him to the back of the boat. The boat was still going under at this point. So we made the call at this point to get out of the boat, get onto the strainer, onto the cypress log itself, the root ball, to see what happens to the boat. Is it going to pop? Is it going to sink and just disappear? Or is it going to pop upright again? When we got out of the boat, there's enough buoyancy left in it. It started to spin off of the root ball, and then I shoved Tom into the boat. I hopped into the boat behind him. We got the motor started, and then tried getting out on our radios, which weren't working. We were getting what we call the death bonks, because you're just hearing bonk, 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 bonk as you try and key up, because other people are talking on the radio. And at this point, through experience, you're starting to hear like, hey, you're able to listen and actually comprehend what people are talking to on the radio. Most of the time, you're conditioned black, you're troubleshooting, figuring out, fighting for your life, what's going on. I had enough wherewithal to understand it's people asking for directions, trying to get to us. So my immediate actions to hit my emergency activation, that overrides everybody on the system to allow us to talk. It also gives us 10 seconds of open mic override to get out what you need to get out. So I was able to get out, hey, boat 91 or boat 92, we're dead in the water, we're in a strainer, stand by for further. They waited for a little bit. Communications came back, boat 92, like, what's your status? We said, we're still in distress, stand by. And at that point, they notified Commander Smith as command, hey, you have boat 92, they have an EID activation. Personnel Barquer was reporting, that's myself, reporting to be in distress, to notify him. And then at that point, other things happen on the background that we're just not aware of because we're busy doing things. We ended up getting the boat upright, getting the motor started, and then made it past wires that were in the water, live wires in the water that we were aware of, back to shore, to where we could get out of the boat. And then at that point, we noticed our boat had been punctured and a third of the boat had been deflated. So the boat's set up into 3 different cavities. So you have your right hull, your left hull, and then your bow. And the air, when you inflate them, goes to all 3. But you can spin them in these boats specifically for swiftwater rescue. They're all chambered. So you can isolate the chamber. So if you pop one like we did that night, you don't lose your entire boat and you can still potentially operate it. So we ended up having to operate the boat back to shore with only the front and the right side, the bow and the right side of the boat inflated to get back to shore.
And what are you doing? Because you have people still on the front porch and probably water levels are rising, right?
Right. They peaked while we were there. We have a trick where we put something down on the ground, like a rock or a cone or something, just so we know, like, hey, we got here, the water's this high. The rock disappeared for a little bit that we'd put out and then started to recede. So once we got them back to shore, and at this particular point, like we at the command post are unaware of what the scope of what we're dealing with, because they immediately got engaged when they went to do a recon. Immediately were engaged in a live rescue. So at this point, I don't even know that there are people on porches. I don't even know how many they have. With the broken communication and all the confusion going on, I'm sort of aware that they're in rescue mode, but I don't know why. I don't know how many people. I don't know what's going on. Now they're in distress. And so what we were doing was preparing for, okay, if the safety boat, boat 28, can't get them, then we have 2 other boats that we can put in. Because at that time we had 2 boat squads there. And we were a mixed. Boat 28 is from Austin Fire Department, and boat 92 is from our agency. And then we had boat 91, and then the other Station 28 boat in reserve. And so we started talking about, okay, let's start getting another boat off. Let's start getting ready to put in. And then at that particular point, and again, this sounds like a long story, but it happened in a very short amount of time, right? It wasn't prolonged 20, 30 minutes. It was very quick. And we were planning on this, and before we could get all that stuff in place, they came back. Half deflated boat, they've got a victim with them and all this other stuff. And so the water's gone down significantly that we can't conduct boat operations in the place that we're in. They reported that we still have people in distress. And then I transferred command to an Austin Fire Department captain at that point, and then we all went on foot and then waded through the water to make access to the victims. And then we spent the rest of the evening or the night, or late night, early morning, on foot, going house to house, documenting people where they were at, extricating people out of their house. Some people were trapped in their house because debris had floated up, and then the water had gone down, and now they're stuck under furniture and things like that. There were people still outside on foot clinging to things, and we just started accessing all those people, doing wading rescues, as we call it, wading through the current as a group, and then making those individual contacts, and then sending them back to the command post area, which while we were out for several hours. And again, it seems so compressed, but it was a long time. Our system and county resources backfilled that area, and by the time we returned, there were, ambulances and tents and command vehicles and the Red Cross and, everybody else was there, and we were totally oblivious to it because we were engaged in active, contact with some people who were safe and wanted to stay in their house. Some people wanted to be extricated. The ones who were in imminent danger, we obviously removed. The ones that weren't, they made a choice. Like, I can get you out now, or we can come back and get you later. You're safe, you're dry. What do you want to do? And then we weighed every single one of those, kind of triage of who goes first, who goes second, what resources do we have. And then we were able to make contact with over 20 people that needed either evacuation or rescue. And then came back to that area and met all those resources, and then returned back to the station, got a new boat, went back to work. We have extra boats for that reason. We put a new boat together, put it on the trailer, replaced the boat that they had damaged, had some breakfast, and then got sent to Marble Falls and do it over again.
We're not going to say they had damage. We're going to say the storm had
Yeah.
damage.
Yeah, the storm had damaged.
The storm had damaged. The
It
storm
wasn't-
had popped at the boat.
It wasn't their fault.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
they were a part of the operation.
Yeah.
So
So how long did y'all, give me kind of a perspective here. How
Sure.
long did you work? How many people did you rescue?
At Sandy Creek, or
Sandy Creek.
we were there. We got
20
dispatched a little after midnight. I want to say our EID activation was like 4-ish. That whole problem that we were in was 7 minutes on the radio. So it wasn't very long, all of that happening. But we were there for 4 or 5 hours.
yeah, and I know that it was 4 or 5 hours, but it's hard for me to get my head wrapped around because it didn't seem like it was that long at all.
Yeah. It seemed like 20 minutes, but it was 4 or 5 hours.
Because we were engaged the whole time. We weren't thinking about anything else other than, get to that person, get them here, get to that person, get them here, stay safe, do the things, communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it was about a 4.5 hour, we were on site there before we were released by command to go back and refit. And then
I think the final number ended up being 25 rescue and evacuations total.
Including the man on the pole.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Was his wife ever found?
I believe so. She was one of the.
She
No, she was one of the victims.
And I believe his daughters were,
Victims as well.
they were found, but were deceased.
Mm-hmm.
So true. And so you're dealing with all that and emotions, and you're afraid yourselves.
Yes. It's terrifying. But it's kind of hard you don't really think about it. You don't realize how
Right.
scared you are until you kind of have a moment to absorb it. But when you think about the variables that I was talking about earlier, which is, it's always at night. I can't see, anything other than what's in front of me, in front of my flashlight. There's never any power. So there's no ambient light. It's cloudy. The moon's not out. And There's water where there's not supposed to be water, and so it's those factors are always present, and it's the super unknown. And I personally, I don't think about it. Hey, I've got to flip a switch. It's just automatic, right? And I'm sure it is for Phil. You get locked into this is what I got to do mode. You shut everything off and do the things, and then it all catches up with you later. But I could see it in everybody's faces, and I'm sure they could see it in mine. Like, this is scary. This is what we train for, but it's still scary. We're humans, and it's frightening to be there and be at the mercy of Mother Nature in that way. But it's we're subject matter experts in that area, and people are relying on us, so you just shut it off and go do the thing.
It's really interesting when you listen to the radio traffic. When you get there at first, we're all chipper on the radio, everybody's talking. We're like, oh man, like this one's blocked, like let's try the next block over. Then you get to the meat and potatoes of the radio traffic where we're doing work, and it's different, right? Like you understand what's going on. You're not really comprehending what's going on emotionally because you shut out. You're in work mode. Like, we have work we got to do. We have lives we have to save. Like, we're doing what we got to do. We got to execute the plan. And you listen to the meat and potatoes of the radio traffic playback that we listen to, and it's stone cold, steady voice, nice and slow, no emotion on the radio. You can't hear anybody freaking out. You can't hear anybody in distress really on the radio. It's just, hey, our motor's dead. Boat 92's motor's dead.
It's very matter of fact.
Yeah, like this is where we're at. Happening. Hey, one rescue executed. Hey, we have the victim. Command, we have a victim. Command, we're going to a different victim. Type of deal. It's very cold, clear, calm radio traffic. Partially that's how we train. So that way when you do get into situations like that, it's not your emotions overtaking you on the radio. You're still able to be the professional you are to execute those plans and execute and get the rescues.
And a lot of it's economy of motion. Like, we don't think of it that way, but we do a lot of things automatically, and we say just enough to go on to the next thing, right? I don't need to tell you a story. I just need to give you this specific information, and I'm moving on to something else. Or cognitively, I don't have enough bandwidth to process that. My hands are doing something, and I can only say this, but it's the only thing you need to hear. And so really that's what it gets distilled down to, is no unnecessary radio traffic whatsoever, because we have elevated ourselves into a different kind of operational mode, and we're just saying the minimum because we have other things that we've got to do. We've got to look for things, we've got to hear things, smell things, and make sure we're safe and we're providing service for others. We can't help anybody else if we're in trouble ourselves, which is why it gets really frustrating and scary when you're in trouble, because there's always that run in the background. But that's what we train for. We train for those emergency action plans that they executed and got themselves back in the game and finish the job and then move on to the next one. And that's the mode we pop into in that. And luckily these things don't happen that often, but that's what we train for all the time. When it's not happening, we're training for it. So when it does happen, we know what to do.
Would y'all say, for both of you, that was the most harrowing flooding situation you've ever been in, or what do you think?
Flooding situation for myself, definitely. That's the worst I've been in. I've been on several deployments for the city, locally, but also assigned to Texas Task Force 1 when they ask for help, and Governor Abbott and NIMKID send out the swiftwater packages that you hear for severe weather. We're part of the teams that the task force spins up and sends us all over the state. And so we've been out on the road for several weeks, not in one time, but in total. But as far as it goes for the worst for myself, absolutely. I've also only 6 years, 6
Something like that.
6 years as a boat operator.
Not very long.
Something like that, for the task force. So I've obviously got a limited history. Commander Smith's significantly longer. He's been in several large-scale floods as well. So what do you think?
The only thing I have to compare this to is Wimberley in 2015. We were one of the first boat teams into Wimberley. The water was bigger in Wimberley. We were more effective in Sandy Creek, just because of the the place we were at and the access we had in Wimberley, all the victims were on the other side of the river that I couldn't get through at all. This time it just so happened that the victims were on my side and we could actually do something. So they're both equally large in magnitude. The flow was greater in Wimberley, but because of that circumstance, I didn't have a crew in trouble. I didn't have a person that needed, immediate help, and we were struggling to make that happen. I didn't have a bunch of people yelling and flagging us down. So this one's definitely it's significantly more complicated and a lot more involved than that was, even though it was a large magnitude event. This definitely, to answer your question, yes, this was the most kind of harrowing situation we've found ourselves in.
I think the big difference between Wimberley and Sandy Creek too is Wimberley's on the Blanco River.
Yeah.
Like the homes and everything are built to be on a major river.
Yeah.
Whereas Sandy Creek, you're building for a small creek that's often dry.
Most of the time.
Most of the time is dry. And then when you get rain, historic rain like we did, that little creek is now a massive river, and the area is not built for that. The homes aren't built for it. There's not the standoff distance on the bank. The bridge isn't built for it, things like that. So
they're not ready built for it.
It changes a lot.
Yeah, I didn't really think of it that way, but you're right. Something else I identified with, like when we set up our live shot, we kind of marked a place too, because we could see the rivers, and we were like, okay, now we have to move back.
Yeah.
And we just kind of kept moving back as the water just keeps coming, and you just don't know.
That's a pro move, because you definitely, because if you'll get so locked into other things, especially us when we start engaging in operations. We've had instances where the water has risen and no one really realizes until someone goes, we're waist deep in the water, and when we got here we were at our ankles, and things like that. So that prompted us, kind of as a group with the state and educating, other agencies, that you need to put something down just as a reference point. That way it's immediately visible to you that the water's going up or it's receding, because both of those things are important. Because water comes up, we could obviously be in more danger, or the flow is going to increase, or we're going to have more people involved. The water starts going down. As in Sandy Creek, it indicated that now we're not going to be able to use our boats, at least with the motors on them. We may have to go to boats without motors. Or like we did, we just went straight to contact rescues on foot. But we were still operating in waist deep water that was moving significantly fast through that area. But it's good to have a point of reference, because when you get locked into an operational mode, you may not be thinking about it, and you just won't notice it until it's possibly too late. And you also haven't adjusted your operational tempo to accommodate for it. Like I was saying, like there's going to be more houses flooded the more it rises. There might be more victims. Maybe we need more resources. So it's not just that you're protecting yourself. You're actually making decisions on the overall response and how we need to ramp this thing up, or we can ramp it back. It tells you a lot of things about what's going on. Again, in a place you've never been before, in a place there's not supposed to be water. That's the big thing.
So your takeaway, what did y'all learn from this that might make you even more effective next time?
Oof. We took a lot away.
That's a big one. Yeah.
We took a lot away.
Yeah.
No, the biggest one that I could probably say is, like, for the folks that live around the water, right? Realize that while you're safe 99% of the time, have that plan for yourself and your family to be able to get out ahead of time. First of all, because then none of us have to be in this situation. But if we do, right, make sure when you do call, you have your address. Oftentimes, like we found in Big Sandy, when we were asking people their addresses so we could locate them, we would get one address and we'd talk to their neighbor who's supposed to be next to them, but they're actually 4 houses down when we truly find them. Know your address. Have your house really well marked, because we're not going to be able to see in that rain. And for us as well, operating not only with our agency, but with other agencies as well, just that mutual aid response that we have, the communications, the radios, the commands, the bigger picture things. Some of that stuff still gets worked out. Every incident, communication is always an issue for us, but that interagency work that we've put in over the last few years, it really shined that night for us to be able to get a helicopter up in weather that helicopters aren't supposed to be up in, for us to get multiple boat crews out in the field that are supposed to be there or not be there type of a deal, upstaff things and call people back into work. We had a lot of things go right from previous floods that have worked through to allow us to be successful that night.
Kind of overstaffing?
Overstaffing, yeah. Well, I mean, not even overstaffing. Like, we brought in staff specifically for water response. So, like, the field didn't get extra ambulances put on because we didn't necessarily need extra ambulances that night. What we needed was specific boat crews to get called back in. So we didn't upstaff the system. We upstaffed the correct resources that we needed. So we got our command staff, our chiefs made the call to say, hey, we're going to staff just extra boat crews. Call in the spec ops guys, call in the rescuers, have them staff the boats, get the off-duty boat operators, because normally we have boat operators on duty. Those guys were deployed for the Kerrville flooding. They weren't in Kerrville yet. They were staged by the state around the Kerrville area. So it was, hey, we have operators that aren't deployed by the state yet. Call them back in because it's the holiday weekend. I was supposed to be off on vacation. So I came back in, right? I missed my vacation to come back in for it. And so everybody, half of the boat team had been called in that night to be able to staff it. So it was, part of it's just the execution from our leadership to be able to say, hey, like, we're making the call, it's raining, the state's activated resources, our city's in trouble, we need to make that call now so we're ahead of the curveball before it starts raining to get folks back in here. So.
And they were super supportive. They listened to our recommendations and told us that's what we needed to do, and it turned out to be definitely a life-saving decision for some people to have us in position the way we were. If they would have waited and called us in later, who knows what would have happened. This wouldn't have gone down like it did. But it was definitely for our agency and our area, our region specifically, it was a good indication of what we have collectively built into our response capability, which having the TEECs, or the state boat assets, boat trained assets and people, was a huge benefit, because they're trained to the highest standard. Texas has the highest standard in the United States for boat operators, and it showed. We got in and they did their thing and got in a little bit of trouble, but were able to save themselves from that trouble and help people out, which is what we're here to do. So from the beginning, the stars were aligning from the beginning of us recommending what needed to happen, them accepting that recommendation, making the decisions to do the things, and then we followed through and then did the work, and people are alive because of it.
Y'all were great. What haven't I asked you that you think our viewers would need to know?
I don't know.
Turn around, don't drown.
Yeah.
Like, turn around, don't drown. Like, that's a real thing. Like,
and in these situations, yes, it's none of the people that we were messing with, that would have helped, right? The gentleman that was pulled out of, or they rescued off the light pole, he was, days later, his description of the event was he was in his bedroom, and the water came and the floor came out of his house and they got washed underneath the wall. And so, he didn't really make a bad choice as to, driving into a low water crossing trying to get to work. He just was in a really bad spot. And luckily, we were able to get there and help him out. And again, we weren't sent to help that guy. Like, we didn't know we were being sent there. We were being sent somewhere else, and we were just trying to get through and couldn't get through, and just happened to be there when he needed the help. So it was, it was a good spot to be in, definitely for those people. And I have no idea what happened on the other side. As soon as we got engaged there, we just, I didn't really forget about it, but I can't really do anything of that. I got to do this, and that's what we did.
And I want to follow up
Sure.
one thing with you. Doesn't everybody know their address?
No.
you'd be surprised. A lot of people don't, especially with our folks experiencing homelessness. They don't have an address.
Okay.
Half the time they're living in pockets of the urban outdoors where they know I'm behind an HEB. Or you're a small child and you haven't just learned your address yet, type of a deal.
In this particular situation, that like I mentioned earlier, I feel like based on my past experience and the geography and the way the river flowed and everything, that the people that we were experiencing that weren't in their house had come from somewhere else. And then also you're dealing with an area, if you look at it in a map, there's a lot of converging things. There's a road that, okay, is that a road? Does it have house numbers on that road, or is that just an access road? So there's a lot of things when you're trying to give people, give command an address of, hey, I'm pulling 2 people out of this house, this is the address, and they're writing all this stuff down. I didn't even ask the question, do you live here, right? What's the address? I don't know. Okay, so he didn't live here. He just came from upstream, I guess. And so there's a lot of confusion that goes on. It's way outside of the ordinary. Like in a normal situation, you'd be able to spout off your address, your phone number, your driver's license number. But when you're under duress and you're, been stripped of all your clothes and you're cold and your family just got washed away, like it's hard to remember things.
The other thing too is 4th of July weekend.
Yeah.
So some of the people are visiting friends.
Right.
Like, I can tell you how to get to my best friend's house. I might not be able to remember his street number.
Right.
So
can drive there. I just don't know what house it is.
So that might be why they don't know where they're at, simply because they're at their friend's house and they weren't at their actual place of residence.
Yeah. That makes total sense. I wouldn't know my friends' addresses.
Right.
Yep. But you can get there blindfolded and backwards.
You probably don't even know your friends' phone numbers. You just go to a picture and you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah. So at this day and age with technology, we've just gotten away from a lot of that stuff we used to do growing up.
We used to memorize, but we don't anymore. We don't have to.
Yeah.
Well, and one last thing I want to have.
Sure.
You said mark your house.
Yes.
So that because street, like my 7907, maybe you couldn't see that in the dark. What do you mean by that?
So a lot of houses, Postal Service, right, will have your curb address, like either on the curb or on your mailbox if your mailbox is.
Which in a flood, you can't see the curb.
Yep. Half the time the mailboxes are gone. So there goes your house numbers. I live out in the county, and in the county, our fire department, our ESD, does blue signs, the bright blue signs, and they'll come out and they'll mount them for you. Either that or like have your address up on the side of your house, like by your front door. Most of the time you can run down to one of the big box stores and grab the numbers, nice numbers, or you can just go stickers sometimes. And they're often large, they're often 2 inches or greater and on like off colors, so it's not blending into your house. So that helps us not only on a daily basis running calls, whether we're here for a medical emergency or a structure fire if you're the fire department, or the police officers if they need to come and help you. But in a flooding situation, it's not a curb that's going to be underwater or on a mailbox that's washed away. We're able to actually identify your house number.
People just don't think about it, right? It's not this is the second time this has happened in 10 years, right, where we've had major flooding, right? So it doesn't happen very often, but it certainly helps.
No, I'm thinking about that. Now ours is on our curb.
Yeah.
Everybody's is on their curb. Some people have it on their house, some people don't. Just a minor detail.
Yeah.
I know, but it can be so helpful. And if it's reflective, even better, right?
Even better. Yeah, we got lots of lights. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you both.
Absolutely.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. Please hit the subscribe button and get the latest news by downloading the CBS Austin News app.